So designation of the Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist group is incredibly significant because they are so implicated in every aspect of the Iranian economy that it basically delegitimizes any dealings by any EU entity with Iran. And it has to do with a general movement of the European Union, along with the rest of the Western world, towards a situation where there is a determination to bring down the regime in Iran. There's no other way to look at it. It reminds me a little bit of what happened in the 1980s with the apartheid regime in South Africa, where it wasn't declared that it had to end, although some people perhaps declared it. But there was an understanding that the game was over. And I think there is an understanding that the game is over with the Islamic theocracy in Iran that is not only oppressing horribly the 90 million people of Iran, but interfering with Arab countries in the region and constituting a danger to world peace. So that's where we are, and that's the significance of that move. The Iranian counter move to declare European entities terrorists is comical, obviously. Okay, fine. So all of Europe is a terrorist. We'll see what that does, and my guess is it does nothing. It's a kind of desperate move that suggests that the Iranians probably understand that the game is over.
And how cornered is Iran? Because Iran is going talking with Turkey, going talking with Saudi Arabia, which are all, of course, not its traditional allies.
Yeah, so look, it's one thing to want the Iranian regime to fall, and quite another to be able to pay the price for a military move that aims to achieve it. And by the way, it's very difficult to cause the collapse of a regime that is willing to kill unlimited amounts of people. So, I wouldn't take too seriously what the likes of Saudi Arabia say in public. I mean, Arab regimes generally say in public things that they don't say in private. But it's conceivable that they would prefer for military action before stalled. With Turkey, there's a complication because of the Kurdish issue, where they fear that a breakup of Iran could cause the Iranian Kurds to break away, which might embolden Kurds in Turkey. It's complex for Turkey. And so there are a lot of moving parts here, but I think the big picture is the world is coming around to the idea that after 46 years, the Iranian regime probably needs to enter the dustbin of history. I would note that it's rather interesting that communism in Eastern Europe lasted about 45, 46 years. And I remember very well, in 1989, 1990, when it fell apart, some people were surprised. But when it fell apart quickly and decisively. And I was in Romania a month after, and you could find not one person who would admit that they were ever supporting communism. And my guess is when the Iranian regime falls apart after a similar time frame, and when we go to Iran, which we finally will be able to do, you will be able to find not one person who will claim they supported the Islamic Republic.
And if this regime falls, is there anybody who we know as a strong opposition leader or somebody significant who can take over?
That's a complex question. The opposition is divided. The opposition is mostly outside the country. The degree of oppression politically that the Islamic Republic has imposed on Iran within the country has stamped out any visible opposition to a great degree. But I think Reza Pahlavi, the son of the former Shah, is an interesting figure because he has no monarchic ambitions. I interviewed him about a year ago. He says credibly, I think, that he wants to be a transition figure en route to a constitutional democracy. Sure, his father was not a democratic figure, but I believe after 45, 50 years abroad, pretty much, that's what he would like to do. And because we're living in a celebrity era where, people need a figure, much as your question implies, the idea that Reza Pahlavi could be that transitional figure, uniting the opposition in an ambition to create some version of democracy in Iran, could be effective. Now, I don't expect them to arrive in Iran tomorrow because that would be dangerous. But if they can get the Iranian military at some point, or parts of the Iranian military that precede the regime and that are in no way part of the Islamic theocracy, to betray the regime and to turn on the regime, as occurs generally when we have revolutions, it's the military that brings the coup de grace. If the Iranian military can do this, I am suspecting that they would agree to have Reza Pahlavi be a transition figure, yeah.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Perry. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has emphasized that the UK is working closely with its allies to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Starmer has confirmed that this remains a key objective for the UK. When asked if he would support potential US military strikes on Iran, he clarified that while he supported the goal of preventing Iran's nuclear development, discussions with allies are ongoing on how best to achieve this. Additionally, Starmer has condemned Iran's violent repression of protesters, calling the killing of demonstrators grotesque. Let's listen in.
The goal or the aim here is that Iran shouldn't be able to develop nuclear weapons. That's hugely important. And of course, we need to deal with the fact that they are repressing protesters, killing protesters. It's grotesque what is happening. And so that's where our focus is, and we're working with allies to that end.
Now we welcome back Mr. Dan Perry. He's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Perry, for staying with us. Now, as you know, we heard UK's Prime Minister say, and also US says that they are open to diplomacy. From your analysis, which channel of diplomacy is realistically open?
Look, the thing about Donald Trump is that he doesn't particularly care about democracy and promoting democracy. The national security strategy that the U.S. released a month ago specifically, explicitly, and shockingly breaks with over 70 years of bipartisan consensus in the U.S. About promoting democracy abroad. So it is possible that for the Iranian regime, there is a potential of having America support their continuing to exist, even though they horribly oppress their own people, because Trump doesn't care. But for that to happen, they would need to agree that Trump is the capo di tutti capi, and they would need to succumb to his hegemony. I suspect that there's a scenario where Ali Khamenei, the superannuated supreme leader, maybe flees or is removed, maybe goes to Moscow, and Trump can point to that as a huge success while maintaining the rest of the regime in place. That would be the Venezuela scenario, where he removed Nicolas Maduro, but kept the regime in place. And shockingly, instead of trying to engineer a replacement of the Chavismo regime with Machado and with the democratic opposition, he started talking nonsense about how that opposition has no credibility, no support, a lie, and worked with the existing deputies of Maduro as long as they agree to play ball. Some version of that could happen in Iran. That would be terrible for the Iranian people, but I could see Trump doing that because that would enable him to claim some kind of win. But I would hope that the American system, which right now is in retreat because in America we're looking at something of an autocracy, a weird autocracy with the president determining everything. But if the American system comes together and puts together a coherent American plan, that plan probably should involve a removal of the regime and the replacement of the regime with a liberal democracy.
Right. And lastly, as the oil sector, even if the regime change doesn't occur, if US gets what it wants, in case if it's oil, is there really need for US to gain access to Iranian oil? Because it seems like with Venezuela and many oil channels open for US now, especially from South America, it seems like it's enough, or do you think that it could be one channel for diplomacy?
I must say, I reject the premise of the question. It doesn't matter what the U.S. needs. The U.S. can't run around the world seizing what it needs. but all right, if I am to engage, the U.S. doesn't need it. The U.S. is a net exporter of energy. The U.S. has access to all kinds of energy. The U.S. probably would be wiser to try to maintain its position as the leader of the rules-based global liberal world order that was established under U.S. aegis after World War II and has provided so much of the world with a degree of prosperity and peace. I don't think the U.S. should go around usurping people's oil. And again, as I say, nor do they need Iran's oil. I mean, it may be convenient, but that is not the way to go about your business.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry, for highlighting that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, looking at Israel, the Israeli military has confirmed that around 70,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza during the ongoing conflict, aligning closely with the figures reported by the Palestinian Ministry of Health, run by Hamas. In a briefing to Israeli journalists, military officials estimated the death toll, though they have not officially confirmed it. The health ministry, which does not distinguish between civilians and Hamas, reported that 71,667 people were killed and 171,343 people injured. Earlier in the war, Israel had questioned the credibility of these figures, accusing the Palestinian Health Ministry of inflating the death toll, claiming the ministry were in cahoots with Hamas. However, reportedly, military officials have privately acknowledged the severity of the situation, with some high-ranking officials noting that more than 50,000 Palestinians have been killed as early as March 2025. The IDF has yet to release official data on the casualty count. Let's hear back from Mr. Dan Perry. He's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Perry, for staying with us. What more can you tell us about this IDF and the death toll from Gaza?
The IDF seems to be dropping its objection to the Gaza Health Ministry figures, although no one knows of the 70,000 people that everyone seems to agree were killed, how many were Hamas terrorists. I think at the end of the day, it's clear that Israel is admitting that tens of thousands of innocent civilians were killed, whether it's 30 or 40,000 is almost not the point, because obviously it was a horrible, cataclysmic situation. And of course, many more people are injured and many more people were left homeless. The narrative about this at the end will come down to who we blame. That it was a cataclysm is clear. Do we blame Hamas for holding on, for insisting on holding the hostages, for insisting on maintaining power in Gaza, even as Israel's going after them? And Hamas put civilians willfully in the way. We have to remember Hamas wanted civilians to be killed because that made Israel look bad. Do we blame Hamas or do we blame Israel for being the party that pulled the trigger? I'm not sure which way to go, frankly. And it's conceivable that there are no particularly good guys here. But we see what happens when a nihilistic jihadist group is allowed to take over a territory and threaten its environment. And I would just hope that the lesson is learned, that this cannot be allowed to happen anywhere. Anywhere. And so the question right now is, can the world come together in some way to compel Hamas to disarm and get out of the way so that the Gaza technocratic government can move in and the reconstruction of Gaza can begin?
Yes, 100%. Thank you very much, Mr. Dan Perry, for joining us today and sharing that important message with